Well, I'm going to say good afternoon. Do I have my time zones correct on that end, Scott?
You sure do. We're looking at about 2:30 p.m.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Is it a good day aside from talking to fake news media asking you the same questions over and over and over again?
Yeah. Yes, it is a good day. I'm home, and that's becoming rarer and rarer nowadays. The whole machine is starting up because Finger 11 actually has things going on. So it's there's a finite amount of days where I am just at home and doing nothing. So I enjoy these moments.
I can imagine. New record, great story behind it that you kind of captured the magic in the last hour of the session. But when did you actually finish the record?
Um, there was whatever the deadline was, so that might have been, was it was it I think it was earlier this year, but I
Hmm.
mean we used every ounce of time. We had all the time in the world to make these songs and redo them over and over, but then when it came time to a deadline, a very serious deadline, where music needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think was up to the 11th hour, pardon the pun.
Was it the kind of case where the label said it's coming out on this day, you have to deliver it by this day to hit our Q4 profits?
Well, in right. They said, look, here's a deadline. And we were like, well, we asked management, is it really a deadline? Like, what's the deal? And they're like, yes,
Yeah.
100%. Do not miss this deadline. It was very serious. And you know, we had the attitude, previous to that where it's like, well, look, it's done when it's done, and that's still true, right? It's like, well, we got to be happy with the record, like that. That's
Mhm.
that's number one, you know. But this is because we had blown, several deadlines before. So this was a for real, no kidding. If things are in motion. If you want to keep your release date, all that, all those kind of business things. We thought, okay, all right, we better finish this up.
So you've already done a batch of US dates, batch of Canadian dates coming up, then I'm sure you're going to come back here. But how much of the new record Last Night on Earth are you playing live in these sets?
At this point, a full headline set, we have played three songs. Three songs from the set. If fans, start asking for more, that's perfectly fine with us. But I think we like to play songs that, people are familiar with. We do like to kind of stack the set list, but having said that, we're extremely excited to be playing the new stuff. And it does seem to be going over very, very well. We've been
Yeah.
playing songs that have not been released, and there's, even just like, if you got a whole crowd kind of like bobbing their heads to like a new song, that's a win. So my hope is that the reactions to the new stuff only gets better and better with familiarity.
So now with it being 20 plus years since one thing, so and a real career happening for 20 plus years at this point, when you're putting together a tour set list, three songs, it's kind of like you really can't fit any more in there unless you're going to play 2.5 hours.
Right. Like that is enough new material. If we got to sort of pull on the reins a little bit as far as like the new stuff. You gotta keep the audience in mind.
For sure. So, which of the songs are you allowed to say, or do the people have to be surprised? So that way, when they go to Setlist FM and they mouth the words that they don't know the lyrics yet to, can we prepare them?
Well, we've been playing Blue Sky Mystery, which
Hmm.
is, kind of the most recent single, and we've been playing Last Night on Earth, the title track, and we're getting the mountain up and running. It's starting to sound good at sound checks. Um, so I would look forward to those. We've been playing Adrenaline for quite a while, ever since last year,
Hmm.
and that's a fun one. So we'll have to figure out, if we put the mountain in, what do we take out? And that's a fun, those are fun puzzles to solve. It's going to be cool. It's nice to be in that position where it's like, okay, we have a lot of songs. So how do we keep the set list flowing? How do we keep people happy? That's going to be a fun thing to figure out.
And now that it's been a few years since the greatest hits compilation, arguably one or two more albums you could do greatest hits volume two. Has that ever come up?
Not yet. That would be something, you know. Um, our next album hopefully doesn't take as long, and yeah, if that's stacked with some hits, that would be good. And then we could talk about, you know, greatest hits volume two. That's uh that's maybe in the distant future, but anything's possible.
Yeah, Van Halen only got a greatest hits volume one, but Creedence Clearwater Revival got a volume two. So that's when you know you've made it.
Yeah, yeah, that would be. I think that's the top of the mountain, I think.
So I have a random question. This is not meant to be an insult. This is actually a compliment of sorts. So I think a lot of people like myself, the first time we heard Finger 11 was one thing. And one of the people that you collaborated with on this album is Richard Patrick, who's on Blue Sky Mystery. And Filter had a thing that, yes, Hey Man, Nice Shot was this monster hit, but the big hit a couple of years later was the ballad. So a lot of people are going to Filter shows going, oh, so this is a ballad band. And then they'd go, oh, no, it's an industrial band. And this song has nothing to do with it. And Extreme is another one of those examples where the big first initial hit was this ballad. And then people might have come to the show and went, oh, no. When did you start to notice that people got it and knew that Finger 11 was a hard rock band as opposed to a ballad band?
Um, I think I'm not sure. I don't know if that mystery's still been solved for a lot of people, but there are just some times where, let's say you're playing, like somewhere that's not like a rock club, or if you're playing a county fair or like
Yeah.
a casino, you might have some surprise faces, but very rarely, like we don't have the problem where half the audience leaves because it's not what they expect,
Yeah.
you know whether that's because the guys in the band put on a fantastic visual show. Like it's look,
Hmm.
I sing, I'm in the middle and I'm very much into it and I'm singing to the best of my ability, but that's nothing compared to like these maniacs on either side of me that are just putting on a show, and I'm not sure if they know what they're going to do next, but it is captivating. So there is, sonically there's always been a mixed bag. um but that hasn't been a problem for the band ever since we started. So, and it, we're on that same path, which happens to just be our own. And so, look, we we weren't that concerned. Like, we named the record after like the quote unquote ballad of the record. So it's all good for us. But yeah, there's it's the heavy stuff is just as important as the light stuff to us in our world. So it's all going to work out.
It all has worked out clearly. And the another thing that you guys have overcome, I found it funny that you guys were on the class of 99 tour when one thing was in early 2000s. In other words, you were not a 90s band in any respect.
It that's true. Like, people had discovered us, in the 90s, even though we had put out a couple records,
Right.
so yeah, it took, that's a whole other story where, we had this label that cared about us deeply, and we put out a couple records, and it didn't matter that we
Hmm.
didn't have any massive success. It was just more like, okay, keep going, we love you. And on our third record, we kind of, we actually did have a hit, but those are the kind of things that make record companies happy. um
Yeah,
for us, it was just like, okay, like, this is just being together and trying to make great music. That was enough. But having that support system is, I think I took it for granted back then, but it was, it was
for sure.
huge. It was huge, and it kind of doesn't happen anywhere near that. It doesn't really happen that much anymore.
I think Billy Joel, the hit was on the fourth or fifth record. So you have to go, that label is willing to take three or four losses to get to the big hit. So I think you were one of the last bands to have one of those things where you didn't get dropped because the first two didn't take off so big.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it happens. I think if you're a band for longer than a minute, you are going to have those things. You are going to have a label that promises everything and then he drops you, and then there's a label that sees potential and nurtures you, and I mean, I'm just happy to come all the way through and still be a band with my, middle school, high school friends.
That was another point of curiosity for me. It's basically it's you guys, you two, Clutch, and the Chili Peppers. Those are the only bands I can think of where it's the high school friends. Maybe the Deftones too. Were there any other bands from your high school that actually became professional?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, but I do think back to those days where it was an absolute scene. All my friends were in bands, and every weekend we would, there would be a like these afternoon shows in these clubs, and there was like the like
Yeah.
seven bands that get 20 minutes, and it was there were like thrash bands and folk bands, and there was us, and so we fit in there somewhere. But we all thought we were gonna, take over the planet. And there's I guess there's a band called Cyan Spheric, which they're still making noise and they're still fantastic. And they made it through. But all my friends, we all thought we were gonna tour the world together. And we're so lucky that or a mix of like naive, just the idea with, oh yeah, of course this is all going to work out. Of course we're going to be in a band forever. It just makes sense. So yeah, we're very lucky to kind of still be achieving this like incredible like 14-year-old's dream. It's awesome.
Were any of those bands on those billings ska bands?
No, no, there wasn't a lot of ska representation. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was like there wasn't even that much pop punk. That's how far back that scene goes. There was thrash, and
Mhm.
there was like funk, like like we're talking about like Red Hot Chili Pepper style funk.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, not too many ska bands, not too many bands that had like, nine members and the one guy just sort of, I don't know, he's supposed to dance or backup
Our
vocals.
equivalent from the same time period, being on Long Island, it was like Taking Back Sunday and Brand New, like were the bands on those shows, but there's also a lot of ska bands coexisting with the hardcore. And I'm sure Ontario's a lot different.
I think I'm jealous of ska bands. They look like they're always having so much fun. And just the nature of the music is always just that literal upbeat sort of I don't know. I think it's a smart choice if you just want to have a good time. Like, yeah, because what else are you doing?
Except the splitting, as you pointed out, the splitting the paycheck 9 ways or 10 ways. And plus
Yeah,
they need techs too, even though there's 10 people in the band.
there's no dressing room that can accommodate them. There's no vehicle that they can, comfortably sit in for the
No.
for the lean years, the early period. So I mean, look, it's for the love of the game, and bless them. That's cool.
Well, two quick questions and then I let you go. And the first question is Finger Eleven's kind of a band that all we know are these are the songs, these are the hits. We'll see them live. In other words, it's not a band where you go, oh, the bass player loves boating and the drummer has a golf charity tournament. For you, what's the main hobby when you're not touring and on the road?
My biggest hobbies are it's all about games for me. You're talking board games, video games, everything in between. When I'm on the road, I'm constantly looking for good places to play pinball. That's
Hmm.
my favorite thing to do. Seeking out a place that like maintains their machines and I mean, I'm wearing a pinball shirt right now.
Yes.
That's right on brand. But I've always loved games, and it's again like music. It's a passion I carried, with me, all these years when I first fell in love with them at like whenever, like 11, 12 years old. But yeah, so that's a big one for me. And it's fun to just sort of fold in, your days off on the road to kind of like, all right, I would never be in this place. Can I find a special, can I find the local pinball joint and meet all like friendly people and play pinball and like, be with my fellow pinball freaks. That's what's fun for me.
Okay, so my follow-up question, which I'm changing paths on, is I had a coworker who collected pinball machines, and he told me basically the rockers who like pinball were Slash, Ed from the Bare Naked Ladies, Ryan Adams. There's a few others that he mentioned. Do you have your secret rock cult of pinball people, or you just mostly play with alongside commoners? Like, are you at the trade shows and all that?
I'm not at the trade shows, although I would love to sort of build a road trip to try to make that happen. Um, but we spent all summer with Creed last year, and Mark Tremonti is a gigantic pinball guy. So that's
Oh.
all we would talk about. And he had that he had a really cool system going on where he would just be in touch with local pinball people and have them bring tables to the dressing rooms. Like,
Yeah.
they would bring the pinball tables to us, and he would always let me know if, he's like, "Hey, Scott, listen, there's a machine over there," and like was like one of their restricted dressing rooms. He's like, just go in and play pinball. And so I would never, if I'm on the road, I stick to my dressing room. I do not wander off, you know, lest some tour manager, slap me on the wrist. But I was like, all right, look, I love pinball so much, and Mark Tremonti said I could be here, so I'm gonna go play some pinball. So, but I do like meeting, I like meeting people at the local pinball parlor, because we're kind of all the same. Like, there's just you spend too much time, obsessing about these machines, and playing these, and there's nowhere else like this just giant collection of pristine machines that like just cost somebody a ton of money. You can play for, a few bucks. I love it.
So next time I interview you, I'm going to ask you about that obscure one that Tina Fey did the voice for
Oh
before.
yeah, that's medieval madness, man.
You know your stuff. Well, hey, thank you for the decades of great music. Hope to see you live in New York in the near future. And thank you for your time, Scott.
Thanks so much.
Paltrocast.